Video 2, The Lone Samurai, The Life of Miyamoto Musashi. This is a labor box recording. In this video, we will learn about Miyamoto Musashi, first ever fight and origin. Chapter 1, The Way of the Sword Bunshu to Ganryu Island, First Strike Origins. One morning, in 1596, just outside the village of Hirafuku in the province of Bansho, Arima Kihei, a swordsman of the Shinto Ryu, sat waiting for a formal apology. This was to be delivered by a 13-year-old boy, Miyamoto Benosuke, the local Gaki Daisho, or commander-in-chief of every ruffian in the area, the chief instigator of every outrage in Harifuku. Kihei had arrived in the area a few days earlier, put up a simple bamboo fence, erected a placard announcing in the large golden letters that he would accept a match with anyone willing to enter a contest of skill with him. Why he chose to come to such an out-of-the-way place as Hirafuku is uncertain. He may have heard that a master of the sword and the jite, a certain Hirata Munisai, lived not too far away and hoped to attract his attention. He was, however, to be disappointed. It was a young Benosuke rather than the seasoned Munisai or any other wandering swordsman who noticed the placard. On his way home at the time from a calligraphy lesson, Benosuke took out his brush and ink, smeared over the golden letter of Kihei's sign, and in a fit of bravado wrote, "Miyamoto Benosuke, residing at the Shorin Inn, will give you a match tomorrow." When Kihei returned to the spot and saw this bit of vandalism, he responded by sending a disciple to the Shorin Inn, where the youngster Benosuke lived with his uncle and the priest Dorinbo. As Kihei's disciple informed the priest that his master wished to accept the challenge from this Benosuke. The priest turned ashen and explained that Benosuke was only 13 and that his challenge was just an adolescent prank. When informed of this, Kihei magnanimously sent a message to Dorimdo that he understood but would need a formal apology from the boy in order to clear his honor. The priest readily accepted this term. So the following morning, Kihei sat waiting for the priest and the boy to set the matter right. A number of villagers who had heard of the incident also gathered, probably to witness and enjoy the humiliation of this wayward child who was always causing so much trouble. But as Dorinbo and Benosuke approached, people noticed that the latter was carrying a 6-foot staff. Then, to everyone's surprise, just at the moment the apology was to be made, instead of bowing in humility, Benosuke charged Kihei was not expecting this and may have been caught off guard. But he was practiced swordsman. Dodging the bow, he unsheathed his sword and took a stance. Surely, the onlookers must have thought that the brash young challenger had no chance at all. But after a few exchanges, Benosuke suddenly threw down his staff and grappled with Kihei. He then picked the swordsman up bodily and threw him down headfirst. Recovering his staff, he beat Kihei to death and returned home. Long before writing the book of 5 Rings, Benosuke would become known as Miyamoto Musashi. In the book, he refers to this match quite simply. "From long ago, in my youth, I set my mind on the martial arts and had my first match when I was 13. My opponent was a martial artist of the Shinto Ryu, Arima Kihei, whom I defeated." This is the lines by Miyamoto Musashi. Origins. There is nothing particularly remarkable about the low mountains and hills between the villages of Hirafuku and Miyamoto. In the late 50s, the area contained scattered farming villages dotted with houses, fields, and in Miyamoto, a river of no very great size, yet while the landscape was generally one of the peace and tranquility. If a traveler climbed the Kama slope as Musashi did on his departure, he would come out onto a pass in the middle of the mountains. This was the highway between Harima Banshu and Mimasaka, which during the ensuing Edo period 1603-1868 was a part of a road used for Senkin Kotai, the journey of Edo taken by the daimyo every 2 years. The road itself was an ancient one, probably used as a trial first by the bear and deer, then had inhabited the forest later by hunters, and finally by merchants transporting waste from the western seaboard to the capital. No doubt, it would have been a thing of wonder to a small boy of great curiosity and imagination growing up in one of these otherwise remote country villages. It was the road out. About father. Musashi's father was Hirata Munisai, a landed samurai with the status of senior vassal to the Shinmen clan, whose last name he was eventually given permission to use as his own. The Shinmen family was a pillar of the warrior community in Mimasaka. Musashi was raised in a household that placed a great emphasis on the martial arts, and he most likely began receiving some instruction from his father at an early age. Certainly, weapons of all kinds were constantly around him, and he must have often sat enthralled at the conversations of the talented men who came and went gathering around the stone Munisai for instruction and edification. But Musashi's childhood was not a happy one. Not long after he was born, Munisai divorced his second wife, Yoshiko, who was Musashi's mother, and she moved back to her home in Harima. Munisai then married yet again. Musashi seemed not to have gotten along well with his new stepmother. In addition, there were hurtful rumors that his real mother was not Yoshiko at all, but in fact was Omasa, Munisai's first wife. A claim that the village of Miyamoto, now Miyamoto Ohara Machi, Edagan, Okayama Prefecture, officially makes to this day. When he was about 8 years old, Musashi's relationship with his father began to deteriorate to the point where the young boy began making the difficult trip over the mountains to visit Yoshiko and her family, eventually dividing his time between Harima and Mimasaka. It was at about this time that his formal education was placed in the hands of his uncle and priest Dorimbo. One day, the situation with his father came to a head. The following story is found in the Tenhi Hoken Heki. Benosuke watched his father martial arts from the time he was quite young. As he got older, he gradually started to voice critical remarks. Munisai began to think that his child was not very likable, despite the fact that he was his own son. One day, while Munisai was carving a toothpick, his son approached and began criticizing his jite technique. Angered, Munisai took the dagger he was using to carve the toothpick and threw it at his son as though it were a shuriken. Benosuke dodged the weapon and he locked in the pillar behind him. Munisai became all the angrier, took out his short sword, and used it too as a shuriken. Benosuke dodged this as well and fled outside. After this, he never returned to the house but rather lived with a priest related to his mother in Banshu, and he abandoned his hometown.